minute and a half. Tamil Nadu, Vizag. Teacher from Bangalore, Bangladesh, Jammu Kashmir, Great Bharat, people from India all the way from north to south and east to west, and across the border into Bangladesh. That's great. And I'm going to go ahead and get the session started. Let me bring up the presentation, and then I will start the live stream for our audience on LinkedIn. Sure that I'm doing that correctly. For a moment. Oh, one moment, I'll be right back as Zoom causes me a little bit of heartburn here. I'll be right back. Okay. What happens is that Zoom knocks me off, but I will get this stream started. And we are now live on LinkedIn, as well as I believe YouTube and Zoom. Get back to the presentation. So, apologize for that glitch. And I apologize for my cough. I do have a small head cold, but we are here to talk about how to become a creator of products that delight users, UI UX advanced certification program from IIIT Bangalore. We'll be talking a little bit about UI and UX. I'll be asking you some questions in the audience through a poll device on Zoom. If you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can answer in our comments with A, B, C, or D, but if you're on Zoom, you'll be able to answer the poll directly. And we'll talk about what this program offers, how it gets you job ready. Then I'll cover some enrollment steps and a bonus offer that we'll be sharing with you at the end of the presentation. And then we'll go into a Q&A with Dr. Preeti and Arnab. And to get ready for that, please put your questions in the Q&A function in Zoom or into the chat or comment box of your streaming service. And then we'll be able to take those that time. So, Preeti, I will let you introduce yourself because you know more about you than I do.
Thanks very much, Stuart, and a very good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Preeti Mudliar. I'm an assistant professor at IIIT Bangalore in the IT and Society domain, and also a faculty member and MSc Digital Society program. I teach core courses in human-computer interaction, qualitative research methods, and an elective course in advanced human-computer interaction. I hold a PhD in communication studies from the University of Texas at Austin. Post my PhD, I worked as a research assistant with Xerox Research Center India, and subsequently moved to academia at IIIT Bangalore, where I currently am. My research interests are mainly in the domain of human-computer interaction, and I research and publish in this particular domain. I'm especially interested in matters related to gender, infrastructure, how they're designed, implemented, what constraints influence the way people interact and access resources, how are they designed, how are they implemented. And I'm interested both in use as well as scenarios of non-use, because when it comes to technology, just studying use is not necessarily the most fruitful endeavor, but remaining attentive to instances of non-use can often yield very interesting insights. So I have a range of interests that coalesce around technology, use, access, design, implementation, use and non-use. And I'd be happy to answer questions that you may have as we proceed through this slide deck.
Okay, thank you. Your comments about non-use remind me of the anecdote that's been popular recently about a study of planes returning from combat in World War II. When they looked at the patterns of the bullet holes in the planes, the first thought was, let's put armor where all the bullet holes are. And then somebody said, no, those are the places where the plane can get shot and not be destroyed. You have to put armor in everywhere else to protect those, because apparently if it gets shot there, it will never come back. So looking at non-use is kind of like looking at where the bullet hole. Take us through UI UX as a field, why it's important, and what are the kinds of roles people can play in it.
Certainly. Thanks for that. Design in the context of UI and UX. And what I often tell my students is that this kind of design, what you encounter in an interface, is often an organization's articulation of not only the services and the products that they are able to offer, but also how they go about doing this, because that is often the very first interaction that a customer would have with your organization, with the kind of products you're offering, with the kind of service offerings that you're able to put out into the world. And therefore, both user interface and the design of user experiences are very crucial to the way the customer experiences your organization, and therefore the success of the products, the services, and the systems that they would be offering. So the more cleaner and the more friction-free your customers experience with this front-facing customer interface that there is there, it helps your users, it helps visitors to your organization understand information and control the systems in a more simpler and natural manner. A rule of thumb that is often spoken about in design is you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. You need to find things that mimic what people are already used to, what people are familiar with. Try and be as close as you can to how the real world functions, and look for ways to translate that to the kind of interfaces that you're building. Because people look for continuity, right? And an excellent user experience is something that does not really require people to pause and understand and try to discover information in a new way. They would prefer doing things that come naturally to them and come intuitively to them. And a lot of UX design, UX research roles are really geared towards understanding how best can we optimize the systems that we are building to support users in executing these tasks. So an excellent user experience, as the slide tells you, will contribute towards making interactions with the kind of products that you're building for your organization, the kind of services that you're offering, more intuitive, more pleasing, and it will also result in higher retention rates of your customer, lower attrition, more stickiness. You'd have more people coming back to you over and over again. And the kind of digital world that we inhabit today, the importance of interface-based interactions cannot be overemphasized enough. And therefore, this certainly shapes how we interact with the world, how we perceive it, and what we're willing to spend time on, and how much time do we want to spend on these things. Next slide. So I'm going to spend a little time briefly talking about what you can expect to do as a UI or a UX designer in research. So we conduct a lot of primary research. We are engaged in what we call as field work, which essentially means that you're interacting with a lot of your users, or you're interacting with people who may be potential users, or you may be interacting with people who are not your users, trying to understand how best you could convert them and what are the pain points that they have that makes them not be a part of your customer base. And therefore, if this is the kind of mandate that you have, then you can think of what a UI or UX designer does is that they have at their disposal a vast range of tools that they use to conduct research, and research has many components to it. So starting right from identifying who your target user groups may be, going out and speaking to them in the form of formal interviews, informal conversations, conducting field observations with your users. And this could take the form of formalized user tests, just shadowing your users, trying to understand how they go about everyday activities, and how is it that your product or your service fits within the ambit of their routines. You then take these insights that you've gathered from the field, you come back to your design team, and you ideate and you try and analyze your data to find out how we could build customized experiences for your users, because you've conducted surveys, you've conducted in-depth interviews, you've conducted field observations. So what are you going to be using this data for, and how do you analyze this data, and what do you convert it into? So the kind of assets that we create from the data, from the primary data collection that we do, generally takes the form of things such as personas. We do this to try and understand what are the different types of user bases or customers that we have. You can expect to create a lot of scenarios that are essentially user stories encapsulating how is it that your users are interacting with the product, what are their needs, and how are they using your products or services to fulfill those certain needs. And at the same time, what kind of need is going unfulfilled, because that is what will represent a design need that your organization can then help fulfill. You can also expect to be working with a lot of storyboards that essentially draws out and visually represents what the user flow really looks like, what the user flow when fulfill a certain need would look like. And then we go on to build prototypes, right? So then we take all of this assets, these design assets that we've created, and we move to the prototyping stage, where we first engage in paper prototyping, which we also call as low fidelity prototyping. And there are often these levels in prototyping where you don't directly get on to building wireframes and using tools such as Figma, but you first do them in a more in an environment that is much more low resource, because that is what is going to help you catch errors, catch mistakes, iterate, try and understand whether you're headed in the right direction without investing too many resources. Because the higher you go in the product development stage, making mistakes becomes more expensive and more costlier. And therefore, first understanding your users, understanding what you're trying to build at a low fidelity prototype stage allows you to catch a lot of these things. And it is at that time that you also engage in user testing to assess and understand user behavior. I'm actually giving you what a typical product design cycle would look like. This is not necessarily something that will always follow this range, because when you're working on existing products, you're not really building something from scratch. You have the benefits of a lot of user metrics, of a lot of data that is already at your disposal, and that dictates and influences and shapes what kind of UX design activities you would like to engage with. You can also expect to constantly be engaging in what we call as competitive analysis, because you're not working in silos, you're not working in a vacuum. A lot of what UI UX designers do is also in response to market. It is in response to what your competitors are building, how is it that they are approaching their products and services. And therefore, you cannot expect to maintain a competitive edge if you don't understand your competitors' services and products as well as you do your own. And therefore, we engage in competitive audit analysis to understand how are our products faring as compared to others in the market. You could also expect to work a lot on the visual features. If user interface roles are what appeals to you, then a lot of visual design would come in. And what UI designers generally do is that they'd be paying very close attention to the visual look and feel of your interface. They would look at things such as typography, color, how can you leverage the visual hierarchy of an interface? How can you understand information architecture? How do you understand information perception, memory, recall, to design interface input and output elements? So when we talk about things like call to actions, which is what the acronym CTA that you see on the screen stands for, when you're talking about layouts, when you're talking about what should you link and what should these links lead to, when you talk about how should the look and feel of a landing page be, you are essentially referring to the visual language, the visual philosophy that your particular product or service will be greeting your customers with. And then part of all of this really coalesces under the banner of understanding product specifications and user psychology. So the kind of activities that a typical UI UX designer does would comprise all of these things, right? From identifying who your target user groups are, right up to understanding what kind of specifications does your product and service need to develop, because it's not that you conduct one user research and your job is done. Design and research are iterative processes, which means they're cyclical and they are never done. These are constant works in progress. We work on something, we go to the field, we test it, we collect data, we bring it back, we develop something new, and so on and so forth. This is not something that ever ends. And it's the reason why whenever you open your apps or whenever you look at Gmail, or even if you've downloaded the most recent version of WhatsApp, which was released a week or so ago, it now supports additional features, right? It is now allowing you the capability of doing video calls with more than one person. And the new version of WhatsApp also has a lot of design changes that it has rolled out. So this is how design teams works, and this is what you would expect a typical UI or a UX designer to do. So in this slide, what you're seeing is a sample job essentially of a typical person who's engaged in roles that involve UI and UX specifications. So for instance, this job description says, in this role, you work with both your design team and our development teams to produce engaging, intuitive, enjoyable user experiences for end users. As UX designer, you participate in product discovery, design, and delivery. You work closely with our client to understand the business needs and with end users to understand their goals. Working with the product owner, you help develop a product vision. You craft product solutions and present to the design team, the development team, end users, and stakeholders to collect feedback and iterate towards the best solution. Yeah, the word iteration again. You establish patterns and create familiar experiences that reduce the end user's cognitive load. You directly impact the lives of those on your team, our client, and most definitely end users. So then what kind of requirements should you have to be able to perform this role and to be able to get hired here? So the requirements are that you need experience using research and data to guide recommendations, which means that you need to understand what kind of data collection methods you should be using to address different kinds of problems. You need experience in prototyping and presenting design solutions. So you need to understand low fidelity prototyping, high fidelity prototyping. What is the difference between the two? When should you be using what? You need to understand the arguments, the philosophies, around this term called as human-centered design, which essentially means that you place people at the center of what you're trying to do, because your design has to support people in executing certain actions. You also need familiarity with tools. So these are technical software such as Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD. The industry standard these days is really Figma, but there are other tools. In fact, you can even create mockups and wireframes using nothing more than even PowerPoint. But Figma is the industry ask, essentially, because everybody is using it, the tool. It's a very collaborative way to work. So therefore, given that a lot of design work involves working with teams, Figma is a preferred, is the current industry favorite. Familiarity with front-end technologies helps tremendously. So if you are able to do a little bit of coding, if you understand HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that works to your advantage. And at the end of it all, one of the primary parameters that you're judged on when you're applying for any UX UI position is really your portfolio, right? That demonstrates how you have arrived at a user-centered design solution, which really means how have you thought of this particular problem? And therefore, it is recommended that when you're sending in your CVs, when you're sending in your resumes for a job description of this kind, even if it is not explicitly asked, at some point you will be asked to share a portfolio that allows recruiters to see what kind of skills you possess and how are you able to translate them into thinking about problems and translating them into solutions. Next slide. So the kind of career paths that are available for people interested in the domain of UI and UX, you see a lot of job roles listed here. And different organizations hire differently. But to give you a sense, a UX designer would generally be responsible for designing the entire user experience of the customers and the users. A UX researcher would be somebody who's focused on going out into the field, speaking to users, interacting with users, getting the data. A UI designer would be focused on enhancing and designing visual vocabulary for the interfaces that they're building. A web designer or a web developer and a front end and a web developer would be responsible for the more technical side of things, where they are using HTML, they're using CSS. So therefore, just by eyeballing this particular slide, you can see that UI UX jobs are pretty interdisciplinary, and it has scope for a lot of things related to interface that may not necessarily be very heavy on the engineering requirements, while still being welcoming of people with technical skills. Over to you, Stuart.
Thank you. Okay, and I will start this first poll. Excuse me for a moment as I look around my camera. So this is now on your screen if you're in Zoom. If you are in one of our streaming, oops, sorry, adjusted a bad thing here. Hold on a second. I ended the poll before you could answer it. Give me a moment and I'll fix that for you. Apologize. One of the bad things about having a head cold, it makes you
No worries.
do things that are strange. Okay. Okay. Apologize for that. Let me launch this one, which is a copy of the first one. and we'll just leave this open for another 15 seconds, but is the reason you haven't done this type of a program till now that you haven't found something that covers all of the types of skills that Dr. Preety mentioned? Is it because you don't think you'd end up with a portfolio of practical experience? Is it because you haven't found a program that matches your learning style? Or is it because you haven't found one that fits your work schedule? Close the poll in about 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, and I share the results here. The biggest concern for most of you is the ability to have practical experience that you can share in a portfolio. And the second biggest is finding a comprehensive curriculum. So we will talk about those aspects in this advanced certification program for UI UX design. And this is a 5-month program from IIIT Bangalore, which is completely delivered online on the Simplilearn learning platform. It is a comprehensive curriculum, which we'll describe for you. And it's aligned with the industry requirements. Dr. Preety and her colleagues work with companies that come to IIIT Bangalore asking for help training their staff in particular skills or particular job roles. So this curriculum is aligned to those requirements. It includes integrated case studies, projects, labs that you do on the same platform on which you take your online virtual classes, so that you are meeting regularly with your instructors in a virtual classroom format. You interact with your batchmates, you interact with your instructors, answer their questions and ask them questions. And it's all delivered online, all available to you 24/7. So other than the fixed class times for the live virtual classes, you can do all the other work on your own schedule whenever you feel that you have the time to do it. But you have 24/7 support from Simplilearn and IIIT Bangalore, so that you are able to ask a question or deal with a doubt or a blocker, even if you're working at 3 o'clock in the morning on a project. So it's a 5-month program. We say that it takes perhaps 10 hours a week of devoted time. And at the end of the process, you're going to receive a certificate from IIIT Bangalore that attests that you have completed the program successfully and that you have the skills that were taught in the program. So anyone asks, IIIT Bangalore will vouch for that. Along the way, you'll have done a number of hands-on projects, including a final capstone project, which will give you a portfolio that you can then share with prospective future employers or with your current employer. You'll have access to master classes, including master classes from people working in industry and from IIIT Bangalore faculty. And Simplilearn also offers job assistance career service program for you to help in finding your next job. That is something that extends after the end of the program, so for 6 months after you earn your certificate. Dr. Preety, can you tell us about IIIT Bangalore for those who don't know? Oh, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying, shall I just wait for the slide to come up? It's still on the poll question.
It's still on the poll question?
Yes.
Okay, hold on for just a second. Let me fix that. Been talking about these things. All right, are you seeing the slide for the?
Yes, it's just come up now. So IIIT. Sorry, am I audible?
You are, but just a second while Zoom reads for me again. I apologize for that.
Okay.
There is a issue with my configuration, but
Okay.
oops. It doesn't like when I start the slide sharing, so it goes through this cycle, but I apologize for that.
The slide is back up now.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, great. So why IIIT Bangalore for a course like this? So we were established in 1998 and we have a very rich legacy of engineering education. IIIT Bangalore's mandate was to contribute to the IT world by focusing on education, research, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And engineering is not the only thing that IIIT Bangalore does now, although engineering institute, and that remains our flagship and our legacy programs. But we also have a very strong faculty presence in areas related to IT and society. As I mentioned in digital society, it is an interdisciplinary course that is open for students from all disciplines. And therefore, to equip our students, we also offer courses in human-computer interaction, of which UX especially becomes a very important component of the kinds of things that we teach. So at our institute, we have a lot of faculty and student presence, both geared towards interests in the UX UI domain, as well as very academic research in the domain of human-computer interaction, science and technology studies, telecom regulation and policy, systems thinking, and information technology and development, as well as economics. Our institute also works in very close partnership with the corporate sector, and while at the same time championing and upholding the freedom of what an academic institution should be standing for.
Okay. Thank you for that. And so the program has two potential paths for eligibility. One is to have a bachelor's degree with 50% or higher marks. And this is also open to people who are in their final year of their bachelor's degree with 50% or higher marks. Diploma with 50% marks, you need to have, in addition, 1 year of work experience. And in either case, we're really looking for people who are enthusiastic and want to become either become UI and UX designers or to increase their skills in that field if they're already working there. So with that, I'm going to ask another poll question. Hopefully Zoom will let me do that. So how much experience do you have? Again, work experience is only a requirement if you don't have your bachelor's degree and are only a diploma holder at this point. I'll leave this open for another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and the poll. So about half of our audience are people who are currently studying, and the other half have experience ranging across the board, more skewed towards people new in the workplace, but also quite a few people who are more experienced. Just want to share that to make sure you get a chance to see it. And let's talk about how this program prepares you. And we'll start by talking about the curriculum. And Dr. Preeti, if you want to jump in at any point and add to or correct anything I'm saying, but we start with the orientation session, which is the first step in this staircase of skills. We design this curriculum so that each course gives you a foundation to move on to the next course, and you can't move on to the next course until you complete the course you're on. So the orientation session, or induction session as we call it, is very straightforward. That gives you a orientation toward the learning environment, how to use the online tools, what class schedule to expect, how to access the courses, um, what to do, and where you'll find the requirement to finish a course and get your certificate for that course to move on to the next one. All of that orientation happens in the first session. Then you move on to the first actual course, user experience design. So you'll be looking at the basics and principles of how what user experience is and how you would design a user experience that is satisfying and intuitive for your users. Then you move on from that into user interface and design principles. As Dr. Preety said, it is the visual vocabulary that uh, your users will encounter, the tools that you use to build up, the way the user interface looks, the principles of design that guide your choice of those tools, and so to speak, the words in your vocabulary. Um, Moving on from that, you move into using tools like Figma for user interface prototyping and styling so that you can have experience in how to build out prototype of the UI that you're designing and document it. That will be part of the practical experience you'll be showing off to people. This is how I did this process to take this challenge and prototype it out. Then you'll move on to user experience research and testing and gain the skills and tools Dr. Preety described for observing customers, end users, understanding business requirements, and then watching how users fulfill their tasks related to your product so that you can then feed that back into the design process. And then finally, a capstone project, which ties together everything you've learned in these modules into one final challenge where you'll pick a UI UX design challenge from several being offered. You'll be able then to build your own solution. And that again will be part of your portfolio. Along the way, you can take the electives at your discretion. You can take as many or as few as you want, but we always recommend that you take as many as you have the interest and time for, including master classes from IIIT Bangalore faculty, master classes from UI UX designers who are working in industry. You'll have an available module on building websites from scratch and a module on design thinking. So all of those are available to you at no additional cost in the program. And you'll be working with a number of different tools in the projects and labs that you do. So when you saw in the sample job description where they were calling for experience with Figma or Sketch, you'll be using those tools in the classes. When we say using them, that means you'll have projects that you must do in each course, and they will call on you to use the tools to deliver the project, finish that course, and move on to the next one. So at the end of the process, you won't just have these words to put onto your resume as buzzwords. You'll actually be able to show examples of how you've used each of them. That's a very powerful part of the program. I'm sorry, going backwards. Um, as I mentioned, the Capstone Project gives you the ability to take a real world oriented challenge from scratch and build your solution. You'll do it under the mentorship of an instructor. You'll meet with them weekly, make sure that you're not running into any doubts or blockers that keep you from completing your work. And then at the end of the process, this project will be evaluated and assessed for your final certificate, and it will be something that you take with you into the future, into your job search. I'm going to share with you this brief video, and the reason I'm doing this is that it will show you some of the digital environment that you'll be working on. So it happens to use an example from one of our other university partners, digital marketing, but you'll get an idea of how the actual interface works.
Welcome to Simplilearn and our unique online bootcamp where millions of professionals have gotten the skills they need to succeed. There are two components that make our online bootcamp approach so successful. Great content from the world's leading technology companies, practitioners, and universities, and a unique and proprietary learning environment that was specifically designed for high engagement and learner support. When you log into Simplilearn, set the course timeline that meets your busy work and home schedule and keep track of your progress every step of the way. We'll help you stay on plan with automated and 24/7 human support. At the core of our programs are our live virtual classrooms where you interact real time with trainers that are recognized leaders in their field. There, you'll review key concepts, get questions answered, and interact with your peers.
The important reports on the audience, if you notice, are demographics. This is super useful, especially if you're running ads, for example. You could do it on social media. Later you'll learn social media marketing too. By looking at these numbers, you'll be able to understand the age range of people that you should be targeting. You know what? You could just focus only on that age category to show your advertisements to them. Very useful.
That's not all. You get to learn from faculty at global universities and industry experts via master classes. Ask your questions to top industry leaders in exclusive Ask Me Anything sessions.
So there's another interesting question on the chat box and saying that to optimize in YouTube, you could use the rising section of Google Trends and optimize it. Okay, so let's go back to here, right here where it says web searches, and you can see that there's going to be the YouTube searches. Okay, so now you can see that the YouTube searches is going to be. So there is a option under not just web search, and there's going to be a YouTube search. Okay, so just go ahead and click on YouTube search, and you should be able to optimize your search results.
So what is in-stream ads? In-stream ads refer to when we come across any sort of original video. In-stream ads would appear between those video content. So you would be paused when you are watching an original video and lead to a video ad, and then go back to the original video content.
We believe people learn best by doing. Go beyond practice. Tackle practical problems with multiple projects and simulations, and work on a real-world capstone project that you can showcase to future employers. Your learning isn't restricted to just live classes. Explore our highly effective self-learning videos and other resources to fine-tune your learning and remain up-to-date always. You can focus on different learning approaches by subject to personalize the overall learning experience to your learning style and needs. At the end of it all, you get to walk away with globally recognized certificates from top universities for the program, leading companies for specialized courses, and Simplilearn. So, come on in. Experience professional learning like you've never done before. Get started today.
All right, and I wanted to share that because it showed you elements of the learning environment, how you manage your curriculum, how you take your live virtual classes, how you do projects and testing, the capstone project, how you track your progress and unlock the certificates for each course and move on to the next one, and the support tools that are available to you. So talk about the program advisors who designed this course, and of course there's Dr. Preeti, and there's Professor Sridhar and Professor Prakash, who also oversee the course. Again, this is designed by IIIT Bangalore and delivered by Simplilearn. So they chose us as the delivery partner because of the platform you just saw, and they trust us to deliver this content that they have put together to teach you how to be an effective UI UX designer. So we thank them for that trust in us. We also include in the program the master classes with working UX designers. So there are several of them, people from Amazon, Microsoft, and Adobe who are working in the field who will go through with you in those Ask Me Anything sessions that you saw in the video, and be able to share with you what it's like to be a working designer and what the day-to-day job requirements are and what they work on. So talk about learner outcomes. I want to mention to you the Job Assist service. Again, this is available within India. Unfortunately, we don't offer it outside of India, but this extends for 6 months after the end of your program, after you receive the certificate. Arnab, did you want to talk about this, or would you prefer I do it?
Certainly. So to holistically cover the 4 major areas that Job Assist program covers as part of this program with the IIIT Bangalore is particularly the kind of support that we wish to extend to all the learners who are a part of this program. And this becomes effective as soon as the learner is joined or associated with the program and can start availing the services as soon as they are able to complete the program in the given stipulated time. And with that, they are provided access to our portal partner, which is IIM Jobs, for a duration of approximately 6 months. And the key areas that we help the learner focus and support them in every way possible is to ensure the resume building is top-notch and created from a perspective that will help them get noticed better in front of potential employers. Most importantly, focus on career mentoring sessions and discuss what exactly would an ideal interview session look like when it comes to an opportunity for a UI or UX designer, and particularly running them through mock interviews in case they are able to get opportunities around the same role is what will be covered as part of this Job Assist program. More details in particular are available on the website. I encourage all of you to kindly visit the website and check for the Job Assist program on the page. And most of the information is mentioned as is called out on the page itself. For any further details, happy to connect with the learners, with our team, and discuss any particular queries or in-person questions that come up around this.
Yeah, thank you. And I always like to say that the resume rewrite service and the interview practice services are so valuable because things have changed over the years in terms of how resumes are evaluated, the automated systems that process them, and being able to tailor your resume to both the automated processes and the human interest, attractiveness to the human eye is really important, as well as being able to practice the different styles of interviews that you'll have to engage in your job search. We also provide a series of webinars on an ongoing basis that are available to you so that you can do things like free live classes on specific topics for an hour. You can do overviews of what's going on in the industry or in the technology sector, what's currently going on and what seems to be going on ahead the next months or years. You can take classes on job search skills and also on developing soft skills for your career. So all of that is free. It's ongoing. Based on everything that Dr. Preeti and Arnab and I have shared with you today, are you interested in joining this program? And I'll leave this open for about 20 seconds. Going. About 10 seconds more. And I will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And about 80% of our audience are interested in joining this program, so I'm going to share with you how to do that. First share with you the poll results so you can see. And then the enrollment steps are very straightforward. You contact us at askus@simplilearn.net, and we will send to you, or put you in touch with a learning consultant who will verify your educational background, who will verify any work experience that you want to claim. And I'm putting the email address into the chat right now for you, so you'll be able to find that easily. Then once I verified your